The voices came through the kitchen wall like water through cracked tile. Not arguing, just deciding, which was always the worst kind. "She can't keep up with what we have planned," my daughter-in-law said. I heard the familiar efficiency in her voice, the tone she used when rerouting a road trip or reorganizing a pantry. "The fishing charter is 4 hours out. Jake wants to kayak every morning. She'll be sitting alone in the cottage all afternoon while we feel terrible about it." She was looking forward to it, my son said. Gently, too gently. Just his name. That was all it took. A pause, coffee being poured. "She'll understand," she said. "She always does." I was standing in the hallway holding a stack of Jake's clean beach towels, still warm from the dryer. I'd been about to knock on the guest room door. Instead, I stood there in my house slippers, not breathing, while my son chose not to argue. And that choice said everything I needed to hear. I had paid the deposit 3 weeks ago. Booked it the same evening, they showed me photos of the Amelia Island cottage, 7 minutes from the beach, big enough for all of us. "We'd love to have you, Mom," my son had said, and I had believed him because I always believed him. That was the job. I went back to the laundry room, set the towels down on the counter, stood there looking at the wall for a long time. Then I went to my bedroom, opened my laptop, and started searching. The Grand Addison Resort sat at the north end of the island, perched above a stretch of private beach, with sea oats bent sideways in the salt wind. I'd driven past it twice over the years. Never thought to go inside. The woman on the phone was patient with me. "We do have our signature penthouse suite available for those dates," she said. "Full private terrace, plunge pool, butler's service, chef's table access." "What's the rate?" she told me. I didn't flinch. I had been a schoolteacher for 31 years. I had clipped coupons and patched elbows and once driven 11 hours to avoid a $400 flight. I had money saved that my late husband always said was for something worth it. "I'd like the penthouse," I said. A brief pause. "Wonderful. And the name for the reservation?" I gave it to her. Then I called the cottage company and quietly removed my name from the booking. I didn't tell my son. I didn't tell my daughter-in-law. I let them think I'd graciously stepped aside, as I always did, as I always had. They left on a Friday morning, loading the back of the SUV, with enough gear to outfit a small expedition. I waved from the porch. My granddaughter Sky pressed her little palm against the car window. My grandson Jake looked back once, his expression unreadable, and I smiled at him until they turned the corner. Then I went inside and finished packing my own bag. I had bought new sandals. Real ones, leather-strapped, not the foam pair I kept by the back door. I folded in the linen sundress I'd bought 2 summers ago and never worn because it seemed too nice for ordinary days. My husband's old Panama hat went in last, the one he wore on our honeymoon in Savannah, the one that still smelled faintly like sunscreen in him. He would have loved this. He always loved it when I surprised myself. I arrived at the resort on a Saturday morning, a full day after them. The lobby was cool and pale, full of natural light and the low sound of a fountain somewhere I couldn't see. A young woman at the front desk smiled when she pulled up my reservation. "Welcome to the Grand Addison. I'm Maya. I'll be your concierge for your stay." She handed me a small envelope. "Your suite key. The elevator to the penthouse level requires this. Yours will be the only suite up there this week." The elevator opened onto a private foyer. The suite door swung wide. I stepped inside and stood very still. Floor-to-ceiling windows. The Atlantic stretched out in every direction, blue and flat and enormous. A private terrace with a plunge pool, 2 chaise lounges, a table with a rattan umbrella, fresh gardenias in a ceramic vase on the counter. A king bed, dressed in white linen, that looked like a cloud that had agreed to be useful. I set my bag down slowly, like I was stepping into someone else's story. I walked out onto the terrace and put my hands on the railing and let the ocean wind hit my face. Eyes closed, just breathing. No one needed anything from me. No one knew I was here. For the first time in 2 years, since my husband died and I became the person who was always available because what else did I have to do? I was nobody's plan. I ate dinner at the resort restaurant, that first night a quiet table by the window. The waiter refilled my water without being asked. I ordered the grouper and a glass of white wine and ate slowly, watching the last light go out of the sky over the water. At the table to my left, two women about my age were arguing pleasantly about whether the bread was worth the carbs. I smiled without meaning to. One of them caught my eye. "First night?" she asked. "It is." "Alone?" "Intentionally," I said. She laughed, a full surprise laugh. "I like you already. I'm Rochelle." Her name was Rochelle Baines, 63 years old, a retired nurse from Austin, Texas, traveling alone for the fourth year running since her divorce. She had the easy confidence of a woman who had stopped apologizing for taking up space. We talked through the bread and the entree and well into the dessert menu. And I found myself laughing in a way I hadn't in so long it felt like a muscle I'd forgotten to use. "My daughter thought I'd be bored on my own," she said. "Isn't that something?" She thought I needed supervision. "Mine thought I'd slow them down," I said. She raised her wine glass. "Well, here we both are." The next morning, I woke to the sound of the ocean, and nothing else. No alarm, no cartoons from another room, no one calling my name because they couldn't find the sunscreen or the snack bag or the car keys. I lay there for a few minutes just listening to the water. Then I ordered breakfast from the in-suite menu. Eggs Benedict, fresh fruit, real coffee with cream. It arrived on a wooden tray with a small vase of wildflowers. Maya set it on the terrace table and wished me a good morning and left me alone with the sea. I ate every bite. By mid-morning, I had wandered down to the resort's private beach, where the chairs were spaced wide apart and nobody's children were kicking sand onto my book. I was 3 chapters into a mystery novel I'd been trying to finish for 6 months. I finished it by noon. That afternoon, I walked into town. I bought a small watercolor painting at a gallery, a heron in the marsh grass, something I'd never have done if anyone had been with me to say it was impractical. I ate an early dinner at a seafood place on the waterfront, just me at the bar, talking to the bartender about whether flounder was underrated. He said yes, I agreed. I was full and warm and nobody's responsibility. I didn't let myself think too hard about the cottage 7 minutes away. Whether the kayaks had gone out, whether my granddaughter had gotten enough sunscreen, whether my son had thought about me at all. I thought about it just a little, the way you press a bruise to feel that it's still there. On the third afternoon, I was reading on my private terrace when I heard children's voices rising from the pool area below. Sky's laugh was unmistakable, high and sudden, like a bird startled from a branch. I leaned carefully over the railing and looked down. They were all there. My son in a baseball cap, sunburned already. My daughter-in-law with her hair pulled back, talking on her phone while Jake jumped into the shallow end, and Sky spinning in circles with her arms out, the way she always did when she was happy. They hadn't seen me. The penthouse terrace was set back and high, obscured by a lattice of bougainvillea and the angle of the building. I stood there and watched my family for a long time without being seen. They looked tired. Not the pleasantly worn-out kind of vacation tired. Tired like something wasn't working the way they'd planned. My daughter-in-law hung up her phone and rubbed her forehead. My son said something and she shook her head. Jake climbed out of the pool alone and wrapped himself in a towel and sat looking at the water. I went back inside. It was Jake who found me first. I was in the resort's lobby cafe on the 4th morning, eating a cinnamon roll that was worth every single calorie, when I heard sneakers on tile and looked up. He stopped 3 feet away from me and stared. Grandma. Not a question, not an accusation, just a recognition, quiet and certain. Hello, sweetheart. He slid into the chair across from me without being invited. That was always his way, comfortable in spaces other people hesitated over. He looked at my cinnamon roll for a moment, then at me. Are you staying here? He asked. I am. In this hotel? In the penthouse suite. His eyebrows went up. The one at the top with the pool on the balcony? That's the one. He was quiet a moment, processing then, are you mad at us? I looked at him carefully, 10 years old and already asking the real questions. No, I said honestly. I'm not mad, I just decided to take my own vacation. He nodded slowly. Mom thought you were at home. I know. Did you want her to think that? I reached into my bag and found a piece of peppermint candy. I always kept some, and held it out to him. He took it without looking away from my face. I wanted a little time, I said, to just be me, not anyone's grandmother, not anyone's problem to plan around. He unwrapped the candy carefully. You're not a problem. I know you don't think so. He put the candy in his mouth and chewed for a moment, thinking, Dad said you were probably happier at home, that you wouldn't want to travel. Did your dad ask me? Jake looked at the table. No. We sat with that for a while. Outside, the fountain in the lobby murmured softly. Sky thinks she saw you, he said finally, on a balcony. She told Mom and Mom said she was imagining things. Sky is not imagining things. He smiled. A small, private smile, the kind that meant he was keeping something he liked. Can I come back tomorrow? I want to see the pool. You can come back tomorrow, I said. He slid off the chair, paused. I miss you when you're not around, he said it quickly, the way children say things they mean too much to prepare for. I held myself together very carefully. I miss you too. He left at a half jog, the way 10-year-old boys always leave, like the next thing is already calling. That evening, I dressed for the resort's rooftop gathering, drinks and a jazz quartet, and the kind of easy conversation you have when you're standing above the Atlantic at sunset. I wore a linen dress, the color of the sea at noon, pearl earrings. My husband's hat set carefully on the dresser where I could see it. Rochelle was already there when I arrived, in a coral wrap that suited her perfectly. You look like you've made a decision, she said. Several, I said. She handed me a glass of wine and tilted her head toward the railing. We stood side by side looking out at the water going gold, and then pink, and then that deep bruised purple I had always loved about Florida evenings. A man nearby, 60s, silver-haired, the kind of still that meant he was listening to the music instead of the crowd, glanced over. First time here? He asked. First time anywhere in a while, I said. His name was Felix, a retired architect from Portland, traveling down the coast on no particular schedule. He had the unhurried manner of someone who had learned that urgency was mostly optional. We talked until the quartet stopped playing, and I realized with some surprise that I had been laughing for most of an hour. My son found me on the 5th morning. I was in the lobby cafe again. It had become my habit, that corner table, that cinnamon roll. When I heard his voice at the counter, I could have looked away, could have shifted my chair, tilted my head down over my book. I didn't. He turned with his coffee and saw me. He stood very still. Then he walked over. Mom. He sat down across from me slowly, like a man approaching something he wasn't sure was real. He looked at the sweet key on the table. He looked at my face. You're here, he said. I am. You've been here the whole time? Since Saturday. He exhaled, rubbed the back of his neck. We thought. I know what you thought, I said, quietly, without anger. You thought I'd be better off at home, that I'd slow you down, that you'd feel guilty leaving me alone on the beach. I paused. I heard you, in the kitchen, when you were deciding. His face went through several things at once. Mom, I'm not angry, I said, and I meant it. I'm not here to make you feel guilty. I'm here because I wanted to be here, because this was always mine too. He was quiet for a long time, long enough that I could hear the fountain, the low chatter of other guests, the sound of ocean somewhere outside. We didn't ask you, he said finally, not a defense, just a fact he was looking at. No. We just assumed you'd step back. I've been stepping back for a long time, I said. It got to be a habit. I let it. He looked at his coffee cup. I should have asked what you wanted. Yes. I'm sorry, Mom. I believed him. I had always been able to tell when my son was truly sorry. He went still in a particular way, like a boy who had broken something and couldn't pretend otherwise. I know you are, I said. I also know it's going to take more than that. Not because I'm punishing you. Because habits take time to change. He nodded. Jake found me, I said. He sat with me and didn't make it complicated. He's a good kid. My son smiled, tired and genuine. He came back that afternoon and said he'd seen you, but it was a secret. He didn't tell us. He was giving me time. He's 10. He's perceptive, I said. Gets it from somewhere. My son looked at me, and I saw it. A flash of the boy underneath the man. The one I had driven to school for years. who used to rest his chin on the car door when the window was down. "Can you come to dinner tonight?" he asked. "Just family. Nothing planned." "Not tonight," I said. "Tomorrow." He nodded. "Tomorrow." He stood, hesitated, then bent and hugged me. A real hug, the kind where someone holds on a second too long. I put my hand on his back and felt him exhale. When he left, I sat with my coffee until it went cold. That night, Rochelle and I found a little place in town with live music on the porch. Someone playing acoustic guitar, nothing famous, just good. We sat with local beer and talked for hours, the way women talk when they've run out of reasons to pretend everything is fine. Felix was there too, having stumbled onto the same place by accident. He joined us for one drink, then two. He told a story about getting lost in Lisbon that made us laugh until we couldn't stop. I didn't think about what time it was. I didn't wonder whether anyone needed anything from me. I just sat there present, laughing, taking up exactly as much space as I wanted. Dinner the next evening was quiet. A corner table at the resort restaurant. I offered to meet at the cottage, but my son said he wanted to come to me. I thought that was right. My daughter-in-law was subdued. Not cold, just careful. She'd put effort into her appearance, and I could see the effort was its own kind of apology. She met my eyes when I sat down and said, "I'm glad you came," and she was not a woman who said things she didn't mean, so I nodded and said thank you. Sky climbed into my lap before the menus arrived. She pressed her face against my shoulder and said, "I knew it was you on the balcony. I knew it." "You were right," I said, and kissed the top of her head. Jake sat beside me and passed me the bread basket, first quietly. He didn't say anything about our conversation at the cafe. He didn't need to. We talked about the fishing charter. Apparently, the captain had told a series of increasingly implausible jokes, and Jake had caught a pompano and let it go. Sky had found a shell the size of her fist. My son had gotten seasick on the way back, and nobody was letting him forget it. I laughed at that. Genuinely, my son made a face and laughed too. It wasn't healed. I knew that. My daughter-in-law and I had years of quiet distance to reckon with, and my son and I had a conversation we'd only just started. The table was too small for all of it, but the children were warm beside me, and the food was good, and the ocean was doing its steady, indifferent work outside the window. And I thought, this is the beginning. This is what a beginning feels like. After dinner, my son walked me back to the elevator. In the lobby, he stopped. "What made you do it?" he asked. "Just book the Penthouse. Come anyway." I thought about standing in the hallway with warm towels in my arms. About the quiet decision made alone at my kitchen table. About my husband's hat in the bottom of my suitcase, like a compass. I got tired of asking for room, I said, and decided to just take it. He nodded slowly. "You raised me to be independent," I added. "It just took me a while to apply it to myself." He hugged me again in the lobby, longer this time. I held on to him and thought about 30 years of school lunches and school plays and late-night phone calls, and the way love gets so woven into the ordinary that you forget it's there until someone starts pulling threads. "Good night, Mom." Good night. The last morning I was up before the sun. I made coffee from the machine in the suite. I had finally learned all its buttons and carried it out to the terrace in my robe. The sky was barely light, the ocean just a dark shape and a sound, and the air smelled like salt and the faint sweetness of the bougainvillea below. I thought about what I was going home to, the garden that needed tending, the book club I had stopped going to, the neighbor who had asked twice if I wanted to join her Thursday walking group, and both times I had said maybe, which was my word for not yet. I thought about what I was not going home to. I was not going home to waiting, to being useful on someone else's schedule, to folding myself smaller so everyone else could fit. Maya came at 7:30 to collect my bags. She looked at my face when I opened the door. "Good stay?" she asked. "The best in years," I said, and meant it. In the lobby, I found Jake waiting. He had come alone, 8 steps ahead of the rest of them, the way he always moved when he had something on his mind. He held out a piece of paper folded into thirds. "I drew you something," he said. I unfolded it carefully. It was the resort, drawn in pencil and colored marker. The penthouse terrace sat at the top with a small stick figure in a hat standing at the railing. Below it was the whole beach, the whole ocean, and at the very edge of the water, 4 smaller figures. He had labeled the tallest one Dad, and the next one Mom, and the 2 little ones, Sky and me. And across the top, in his careful 10-year-old handwriting, Grandma sees everything from up there. I held that piece of paper until my hand stopped being quite steady. It's a good drawing, I said. I practiced the waves, he said seriously. The rest of the family came through the lobby doors, Sky running ahead, my son with both bags, my daughter-in-law putting her sunglasses on her head. They gathered around me the way families do, that particular orbit of obligation and love that's hard to tell apart sometimes. My daughter-in-law put her hand briefly on my arm. "I'd like to call you when we get home," she said quietly, "if that's okay." "That's okay," I said. Sky tugged on my sleeve. "Can we come visit your house? I want to see the garden." "Come anytime," I said, "but I'm not doing all the cooking." She giggled. Even my son smiled. We walked out together into the bright salt morning. The taxis were lined up at the curb. I had my own already called. I hugged each of them. Sky longest, Jake second, my son with a firmness that was new between us, and then I stepped back. Jake raised his hand as I turned, just a small wave shoulder height. The kind that said, "I see you." I raised mine back. In the taxi, I didn't look at the hotel as we pulled away. I'd already taken what I needed from it. The sweet, the mornings, the ocean at dawn, Rochelle's laugh, Felix's unhurried stories, the cinnamon rolls, the sound of no one needing me for an entire week. I had also taken something else. The memory of what it felt like to be a person with her own life, not a placeholder in someone else's. I'd been disappearing for years, a little at a time, the way light fades in October, so gradually you don't notice until the dark is already there. But I'd noticed now, and you can't unnotice a thing like that. Back home, there would be the garden, the walking group, the book club. A phone call from my daughter-in-law that I was willing to believe might be real. A drawing taped to my refrigerator of a woman standing high above the water, seeing everything. The cab merged onto the highway. The ocean disappeared behind a row of sea oats, and I faced forward and let the miles come.